Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Special Call Board of Education meeting to order. It is 4:02 on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. Do I have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda? Motion by Susan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Woody. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Do I have a motion on the floor to go into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into closed session to consult with the Board of Education attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in N.C.G.S. 143-318.11a3 and to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in N.C.G.S. 143-318.11a6.
Motion from Margaret, second.
Second.
Second from Frank. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're going to closed session. Okay, everyone, we're back in open session, and currently, right now, we have no action to take place that was in closed session. So do I have a motion on the floor to adjourn?
A motion, we adjourn closed session.
I have a motion on the floor by Mayor Lyon. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Woody. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. That's good. That's good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order for September 13th, 2022. We're at First Light High School, and the time is currently 5 o'clock. Next item on the agenda, take a moment of silence, please. Joe, if you would give us the welcome and the pledge, please.
I will. I want to welcome everybody to the new school year for the 2022-2023 year. Our doors are open, and everyone is engaged in learning. And there's so much positive energy in a school system, the teachers, the staff. It's just a great environment to be in. And we're offering new courses, new opportunities for our students, and that's what we should be doing. We should offer them the opportunities to be successful in life. And I think the school system does a great job in doing that. So let's all work together and do what we can for our children to enhance their success in life. And if we're doing that, then we're a pretty successful school system. And I think that in the past it shows that we have been successful in terms of providing the opportunities for our students. So anyway, I wanted to thank everybody, the parents, the staff, the teachers, everybody that's involved with the Dare County school system for what they do every day. Thank you. So now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we approve the agenda, do I have any board members amend any part of the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to include under new business a discussion and possible action in regards to homeschooled students being able to participate in Dare County school sports athletics.
So we have a motion on the floor to amend the agenda by Mary Lyon. Do we have a second? Second by Susan. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. It passes. So now we have amended agenda. Do we have approval for approve the agenda?
Motion, we approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
And just to be clear, we'll make that item F under new business.
Yeah, that's
10F.
what I want to know.
F. So, public comments?
Sure.
Ms. Hitch?
We have several. First, we've kind of pared down the introduction to public comment, and so I'm going to read you a statement, but it will be less than what you might have been used to in the last little bit. The Dare County Board of Education welcomes the opportunity to hear from the public during its regularly scheduled meetings. The public comment period is open for members of the public, including parents and students, to voice complaints, concerns, or compliments about performance of school personnel, implementation of board policy, the quality of education program, or school facilities. According to Policy 2340, presentations are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Obscene, vulgar, or profane statements, personal attacks and insults, and statements that are disruptive to the orderly operation of the meeting will not be permitted. I'm going to call them in the order in which folks signed up. So if Ms. Jessica Ferns, she's not here yet? Okay. Rana, did she sign up? Did someone sign up on her behalf? Okay. Rana Paris? Am I saying your name right, ma'am? Okay. You can come up and do your public comment. That's okay. You don't have to be a professional. You'll get 3 minutes, Ms. Paris, and we'll start your time when you get to the podium, okay?
Children have gone through the system. I am also a master gardener, and I'm also a naturalist, and I'm interested in seeing if the schools would consider stopping the mowing of some of the large expanses of lawn that we have around some of our schools and encourage natural regrowth, meadows, planting trees, and using that space as a green space for animals, for butterflies, for birds, but also as a science space for students to use in the school year. I think that's something that would be a cost saver because you wouldn't be out there mowing all the time. I understand that there needs to be space for emergency vehicles to get around the school. And in my book, if it's a meadow and you got to get a fire truck in there, that's all right, because meadows are designed for that. If there's places we can add trees as well, that would be nice. Again, windbreak, create green space, cooling space for our schools, but also a way to save money in the long run. I don't know if there's time for questions or...
And we don't usually go back and forth, but we do definitely hear you out on your comments.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jake Posco? Am I saying your name right, Mr. Posco? Perfect, thank you. Great.
Is this on? Can you hear me okay? My name is Jake Posco. I have a child in Dare County School System. She's starting middle school this year, which is her third year in Dare County, so I'll keep this short at the risk of embarrassing her. But I'm a former teacher. I've worked with both public and private school students in K through 12. I've seen really good schools, really bad ones, really good teachers, really bad ones. I just wanted to take this opportunity just at the start of the school year to say how happy and impressed that I have been with our experience in Dare County. I realize these meetings are an opportunity to express concerns and grievances, of which there are many, and many of which are valid, maybe not all of them, but I think it's important that we as parents express gratitude, when and where it's due. I am grateful for the work, the stress that the teachers, administrators, and support staff of the school system are willing to endure. I'm grateful for the love and care that they show for the kids, and honestly, it's the little things that don't often get recognized. Just an example, last week my daughter needed a letter of recommendation from her 5th grade teacher at Kitty Hawk Elementary, and we got the request on a Monday night. We needed to get the request done by a Tuesday afternoon. The teacher got it back to us within 12 hours. It's this little stuff that, again, doesn't always get noticed or recognized. So I could go on, and maybe I will in future meetings if need be. But for now, I'd just like to say thanks to the faculty and staff for the great work they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Posco. And Ms. Ferns? I think I saw you come in. Jessica, you're Jessica Ferns,
That's right, correct. Hey, I just wanted to say good evening and thank you for being here, and that was awesome. I also am super thankful for all the work the teachers and support staff are doing. I wanted to be clear before starting that the teachers and the administrators that are not to be blamed for what I'm about to talk about. I struggled with saying something because I don't want to look like I'm finger pointing. But last week I was subbing in an understaffed EC class. There's 10 students in that class, many with disabilities that require one-on-one according to their IEP.
Ma'am, just to stop you for a second, you can't talk about kids' IEPs.
I'm not going to go into specifics.
Okay,
Yeah.
nothing that could make them identifiable, even by the fact that you were the sub last week.
Okay. So essentially, these teachers are not getting a lunch break. And so I don't want to cross over any gray areas, but I do want to bring it to attention that there's teachers in our schools that everyone talks about, how can we not retain 10 teachers, but their work environment is 8 hours in a really stressful work environment, and they're not getting a break. So we need to address that. This is a call to action because it's, I'm sure, not in guidelines with those things, and it's definitely not in guidelines with the employment. They do not get a break, and they're burnt out, and we're in week 3. So we've got to come up with a way to hire some support staff or readjust support staff so that they can eat not in their classroom.
I just think that if we're talking all the time about how we're going to retain these teachers that are really pouring their hearts into these classrooms and these kids, we've got to give them proper work conditions. I don't think that's too much to ask. So just wanted to bring some attention to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Ferns. That's it for public comment.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Blackstock, do you have any announcements?
I don't have any announcements at this time. I'm going to mention some things later in the agenda.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Margaret, second by Susan. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Reports and items for information. I'll turn that over to Mr. Blackstock.
Thank you, Chairman Twitty. Before we start, we're going to be looking at some accountability results. I think they have to set up the projector for that. So while they're doing that, I want to give a little context to this information I'm about to share. From what just want to make sure I was in the right spot. It looks like I caught people off guard. The best use for the data that I'm about to share is to use this data for school improvement. What we're going to be talking about is how our students performed on standardized tests last school year, and we have schools in our district that had great success last year, and schools in our district that struggled last year. Every school in our district has got things to celebrate. Every school in our district has got things that they need to work on, and that's the best use of this data. The state refers to this as a school performance grade, which I think the use of that label of having a school, an A school, a B school, a D school, is less valuable than simply using the data that we have to figure out where our kids are and what do we need to do to help our kids improve and be as successful as possible. So as the slides come up just in time, the key takeaways, this next slide, the key takeaways from this are that 9 out of 10 of our schools in Dare County Schools met or exceeded growth expectations last year, which is phenomenal. But even more so, half of our schools exceeded growth expectations. And if you look at what this is, these data show us that compared to students that are similar to our students, demographically, male, female, ethnically, across the state, we compare our students' success in the school year compared to how they did, and half of our schools exceeded that growth expectation. Across the state, about a fourth of our schools earn that designation. So the fact that we have half of our schools earning that is showing that we're really doing some good work in the district to allow our kids to make up what I would consider a COVID gap, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. First Flight Middle School earned their highest school performance grade in the history of these school performance grades.
Yay.
And that comes from increasing proficiency, which under the model we have is 80% of that grade, but also having high growth. And as a school administrator, the growth is the part that you want to have happen. You know, you want to make sure you have high growth, because eventually if you have high growth, you're going to have higher proficiency. So First Flight Middle School, they take the growth index, and I'm going to show them on the next slide, and they convert that to a 100-point scale so they can average it, because teachers like to average grades that are 100%, you know. And First Flight Middle School's growth score was the equivalent of a 100 in growth, the highest growth that you could get out of a group of students. So to me, that's just amazing. The fact their proficiency went up is also amazing, and we'll touch on that a little bit more. I believe that what this data shows us is that we are closing most of the COVID gap. We were from the 18-19 school year, which was our previous pre-pandemic data. We lost about 28% in our proficiency over COVID. So there were some COVID disruptions in learning, and we saw that, and the whole state saw that. What we saw in Dare County was in line with what the rest of the state saw. At the end of last year, we're still not quite where we were, but we're only just over 10% below where we were before the pandemic. So we've made up most of that gap, and I think we're on track to exceed that at the end of this school year. We were able to do that even though at the high school level, the ACT benchmark was increased from 17 to 19. So to be considered proficient, even though the ACT is not a proficiency evaluation, but to be considered proficient, you had to score a 19 instead of a 17, which had a pretty good effect on that part of the high school score. So when we see our high schools having success in spite of that speaks volumes to the work they're doing. And again, we did all of this while maintaining our historically excellent graduation rate in Dare County of 93.5%. So the next, First Flight Middle School, I said before, they have an index of 12.26 in growth. So the way these numbers work is that the score of 0 means that you met expected growth. If students, if improved about a year's worth of work in about a year as compared to their peers across the state, then their index would be a 0. If they have a 2 or higher, they're considered to exceed that growth. And there are statisticians who get paid a lot of money to do calculus and figure out, what does that mean to exceed, be significantly enough above what students would typically do to say that we're exceeding growth. So if you look at these scores, a 2 or higher means you exceed. When you have a score like 12.26, that means you kind of, it's a cartoon of the thermometer's going up and it breaks the glass off the mercury. I mean, you just kind of blew the top off of the growth scale with the 12.26. But a 7.21, a 6.39, all of these are solid growth scores that those 5 schools were able to achieve last year, which I think is incredibly important. In terms of proficiency, and I said before that 80% of the school performance grade is based on proficiency. I don't particularly think that's the right ratio, but we can save that for another meeting. But what I will say is that, first of all, every school in our district improved their proficiency this year from what it was last year, which is a great feat in normal times, but it's certainly big when we're in the middle of still pandemic-related learning. So that's a good thing. Our reading scores increased by 7.9 points in reading from grades 3 to 8. Our math increased 13.8 points. Our science, 6.9. High school math 1 and high school math 3 went up just incredible amounts, as you can see there. And what we've seen is that math was particularly hard hit with remote learning. And if you remember learning math, learning that without somebody there guiding you through it, that kind of makes some sense. So all of our measures that we are evaluated on increased with the 21-22 results. So the analysis of that, and I like talking about data, and I could spend a whole lot of time talking about data, and I'm going to try to keep everybody awake here, but is that we are closing what I call the COVID achievement gap. There is nobody that's in education that doesn't think that our last 28 months in education have been horrific, have been difficult, have been hard. Teachers have had a hard time, students have had a hard time, parents have had a hard time, administrators have been through things. It's been a rough 28 months. And Dare County Schools has very quickly made up a lot of that gap, and I think, again, are on track to meet that by the end of this year and be back to where we were before. The good news about that is we're on a trajectory. So it's not just we're going to get to that and then we're going to flatten out, because our schools are moving in a direction, I think, that's going to just lead to more excellence in the district. All of our schools, I said before, increased their proficiency last year. Some of them might have a letter grade of a B or a C, or in one case a D, but all of those schools increased their proficiency this year compared to what it was at the end of last year. First Light Middle School, again, I've mentioned that, has experienced some exemplary results, but First Light High School actually made a lot of strides. They're almost, I think they're about a point away proficiency-wise from where they were before the pandemic. First Light Middle is actually above their proficiency before the pandemic. And other schools are somewhere, in between all of that. Every school has got data that they can celebrate and look at and think we've done good work, we've worked hard, The things we've done have paid off. Every school has got data that they can look at of areas that they can improve on. And to me, that's what you want to have. You know, we want to have schools that can look at this data, not beat themselves up if they don't have the letter grade they think they should, but to look at that data and think, how can we use this information to make our students more successful? Like Joe said at the beginning of the meeting, that's our goal. We want to make our students more successful, providing the best education we can do. So the takeaway from this is that we're moving in the right direction. We have some good data that we can now use at the school level to know what we need to do next to improve instruction and teaching and learning in the classroom. So, and board members, if you have any questions, I'm happy to respond to any of those.
Steve, I don't know if it's a question or comment, but it's like, how do we keep this momentum going? I mean, it looks like we're on the right track here. And how do we keep motivating not only the students, the staff, the administrators to take us where we need to get to? I mean, we're a high-performing school district. We don't only want to maintain it, but we want to exceed it. And so what are your thoughts in terms of how do we get there?
Yeah, thanks for that question. My take on our staff right now is that they feel beat up, you know, for the past 2.5 years. And I think some of what you mentioned before, that we have kind of a positive start, and I think that is true, and I think people are ready to get back in and get back to the good schooling that we enjoy, and the last 28 months has just been tough on everybody. I think we as a district and as an administration are going to have to take special care to make sure we're taking care of our staff members. And I've mentioned before, you know, in education we talk about, you know, all you have to do in education is do what's best for students, and that's true. Yeah, that's what we're here for. We didn't get in education not to do what's best for our kids, right? But if we're really going to do what's best for our students, we've got to do that in the context of what's good for the adults that are working with them. And if we're frying our teachers and we're burning them out, and you know, we're not supposed to respond to comment, but you know, if we're pushing our teachers to a point where they don't want to come back, that's not best for kids. So we've got to figure out that balance of how to do what's best for our students in the context of doing what's good for our teachers. And that's the energy I'm going to bring as assistant superintendent once you guys do your job and name the superintendent. And I mean, that's going to continue. That's kind of where my head is, and that's where the energy that I have to bring to that. And I think if we do that, we've got good. We have the supports we need. We have, you know, the staffing. We always look at staffing to make sure we've got things we need. But that's, you know, we're in a good position for growth to happen. I just think we have to make sure we're watching out for all of our people so that we can continue that growth long term.
Steve, I'd like to add, this maybe isn't a question or like Joe, not a question or a statement, but if at any point until we do, or even after we do find a superintendent, that the board, that we can do as a board to help you to support the staff, please, we hope that you would, I know I would love to hear any ideas you think might put us above that, you know, throw us over the edge, that you have our full support, and please, you know, reach out to us.
Absolutely, thank you.
I also know several of our schools had an opportunity this year to put in their work, in their hours of the school day of, like, I'm going to use Mania Middle School for an example. They call it tea time, where they come in and have that remediation and assistance, where you have an opportunity that if you need some assistance in math, you have that period set out that the math teacher comes in and gives you that one-on-one assistance. And I know First Light, Manual High School does, and First Light High, some others do it as well. So they're able to work that in, and I think as that keeps going, that's going to help, like Steve said, for us to keep going to the top.
Along those lines, a lot of the COVID relief funding that we've gotten as a district has gone to personnel in the buildings to help to make those things happen. We have been told for years, 15 probably, you know, you need to do intervention, you need to do intervention, we need to do intervention, and but how do I do intervention? Well, just do it along with all the other stuff you're doing, you know, and so we're finally able to put, you know, some support in place so that we have some interventionists in the schools to help, you know, meet those things we've known we've needed to do for a long time.
Anybody else have any questions?
I'd just like to say, Steve, what I've seen of you thus far, I'm very impressed with what you've done with our school system. You know, we were coming out of some difficult times, and you stepped up and, you know, got us off to a great start. Greatly appreciated.
I have no further comment.
You want to keep going? Item B.
One more quick thing. Can we, I noticed a couple people were trying to snap pictures of your PowerPoint on that.
Yep.
Can we get that on the website, so if anybody that missed something could go back and review that later?
Absolutely.
We should
Yep.
See if
Yep.
we can do that. Thank you.
Moved on. The next two items on the are items for information. There are two regulations that our staff, Mr. Holly and Georgia, and our finance folks, these two regulations are pay ranges that are in our policy manual, and the administration adjusts those whenever the state comes up with new salary scales and things like that. So this is just for your information, that we've adjusted those based on the current legislation, and I wanted to include that as information. And if there are any questions about that, I can entertain those, and if not, I can end the report section.
Anyone have any questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Blackstock. Item number 9, unfinished business. We currently have no unfinished business. So we're going to move on to new business, and it's Mr. Eden Adams. Would like to come up and discuss and talk about the donation, the construction of the softball field house at Manual High School.
To start off, good afternoon, Chairman Twitty, board members, and community members. Here to talk about approval for donation of Manual High School softball field house. I've been told to read off the script because I can be a little long-winded, so it may be dry in the other words. Dare County Schools Policy 8220 sets forth provisions for gifts and bequests. Through this policy, the Board of Education reserves the right to determine the appropriateness of each gift or contribution for educational programs of the school system, and to accept or reject any proposed gifts. This policy also requires that any gift valued at more than $5,000 receive board education approval for acceptance. The proposal is for To the T Construction, North Carolina, generously donating time and materials in conjunction with various community stakeholders to create construct a new softball field house at Manual High School. The field house will provide much needed equipment storage as well as game day use. Initial construction will not place any financial burden on Dare County Schools or Manual High School. Material selection will be appropriate to the conditions and minimize long-term maintenance costs. Initial design and location have been approved by myself, the Director of Facilities. The estimated cost to construct the field house is $107,000, $389.99. It is my recommendation and the superintendent's. The board accept a donation from T Construction and others for the construction of a new softball field house at Manual High School.
Just to clarify, they still have the initial design and location that you've looked at and said that we have the area to put it there, but is there still permits that will be needed before this can start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
T. Wyatt of To the T Construction is handling all that. So no time value on my side either. T is taking care of everything.
Okay.
So this is going to be an additional building, I guess, next to the field, not replacing the existing one.
Correct.
And is it going to be more, because the existing one has like a press box and everything in it. This is just going to be more of a storage location for softball and soccer?
Yep, storage and a game day use. We'll have kind of football-style lockers in there for game day use, hanging their hats, getting ready. But yes, mostly just storage. It'll go between the scoreboard of the soccer field and the softball field, pressed up against the wood line.
And it will be
To the
used
north.
for the soccer and softball and football? Or
To some extent, yes.
some, okay.
The intent of the donation is for the softball team,
Okay.
but we have discussed various small items, as long as it's not taken over by
Yeah.
football or soccer.
All right, thanks.
Anything additional that changes to the plans that we're looking at right here, it would have to come back before the board? Is that
That's
right?
correct. That's correct.
Okay.
I would also expect that this new building isn't going to create an extra heavy burden for you for maintenance.
No, sir. That was part of the discussion with T, and our review was to make sure we're using appropriate materials, long life materials, hardy plank, LVP flooring, concrete if we don't find any LVP we like. So minimal continued maintenance cost.
Do I have a motion on the floor?
One more thing.
Yep.
Plumbing and electric? Just electric, right?
Everything.
There will be plumbing in there too?
Minimal. Actually, I don't believe there will be.
I mean, obviously they need electric.
Right.
I think it's just a storage facility.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
No restrooms.
No.
I make a motion, we approve the donation.
Motion on the floor by Mary Lon. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Frank. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passes. Thanks,
Please
Edith.
tell these people thank you very much for their kind donation.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Next is first reading of revised to policy 6125, administrating medicines to students. Ms. Hitch?
That's me. So we're bringing this to you to bring your medication administration policy in line with our advice and also the School Boards Association, their proposed policies. We made some pretty substantial amendments. One thing that I would add is that on page 4 of 7, Ms. Lawler, with her eagle eye, noted that we put froms instead of from, F-R-O-M, so there's one additional clerical edit. On page 4 of 7, if you look at the bottom of the amended policy, it's a 7-page policy. On page 4, there is a line that says froms, and it should say from. Under emergency medication, the blue line that begins students must meet, and it says including providing authorization and instruction from, it should say from. I'm sorry. No, from, F-R-O-M.
With that being fixed, do I have a motion on the floor? Do you have a,
Mr. Chair,
she's asking us to waive the first reading.
All right. I move we waive the board's policy for the second reading of the revisions to the policy 6125, administering medicine to students.
We have a motion by Margaret, second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Susan, second.
Aye.
All I said, any discussion? All in favor? All in favor?
Aye. And that's just the waiver.
That's
So
just the
now-
waiver. So
right,
now I have
so
a
now
motion.
you need a motion to accept the policy as amended.
Motion, we accept the policy as amended.
A motion by Mary Lon. Have a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Second by Woody. Any other discussion?
And I know there's been, Steve's gotten calls, I think several of us have gotten calls about the shortage at the health department of not having people even applying for these positions. So I'm glad we're getting this, that's important, we're getting this taken care of, and hopefully, the health department helps us out so much in even providing us the nurse staffing, so
Sounds good.
thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. All right, Ms.
Sure. The next item, I think, is also mine, Mr. Chair. So this is a policy amendment to conform, actually, two of your policies. So your agenda-setting policy does not require a committee, and so we are removing that reference in your board committee policy. And we are asking you to approve, also to waive your second reading policy and adopt this tonight.
So do I have a motion to waive it?
I move we waive the board's policy for second reading for revisions, sorry. I move we waive the board's policy for a second reading of revisions to policy 2230, board committees.
Motion by Susan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mary Lyon. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Then you need a motion to adopt the policy.
Now we need a
as
motion on the
amended.
floor to adopt the policy.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the revisions to policy 2230, board committees as presented.
Motion by Margaret. Do I have a second? Second by Mary Lyon. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board.
Thank you. Next on the list is the board discussion regarding services to provide by the Dare County Parks and Rec facility for First Light Middle School and First Light Elementary. At our last 5-on-5 meeting, it was shared with the board that there was some discussion for the use of Parks and Rec utilizing the fields behind First Light Middle School. Is anybody not familiar with the fields behind First Light Middle? You know, they have a baseball field, they have a soccer field, and a softball field. The baseball and softball hadn't been utilized in 10, 12 years. So those teams, two teams, has been using another facility that Parks and Rec takes care of, okay? So what the Park and Rec is looking for to come in and to work with us is to install lighting on the backside of that facility and upgrade the baseball field, the softball field, put in new fencing, working on the grass, the weeds, all the land back there so they can have the soccer field that we currently use and also have 3 other fields that they could use as the different events may come. It may be lacrosse, it may be soccer, or it may be football for their use. We would have priority. Diane, myself, Steve, Bobby Alton, Tim White with Parks and Rec, Ian and Scott, his staff, has walked the facility, has discussed it, and the use would go from Diane and Trey Scott, they're the athletic director at First Light Middle School, give a whole list of their games for the current season, okay, for the whole year. They would have priority of the facility. After that, nights or weekends, the county would go through their source that the Babe Ruth or any other 8U or 9U facilities would request it, would not come through Dare County Schools. It would be requested through the county Parks and Rec. So they would worry about taking care of who's playing where, what time are they being utilized, the cleanup at the concession stand, the restrooms, and the lights, and taking care of that whole facility will be on the Parks and Rec. So in talking with Ms. Hitch is that we need to reach out and look about our insurance for this to take place. So what I'm really asking tonight is, first of all, we'll discuss it, have any questions, but to have Ms. Hitch go to the next step to see and draw up the paperwork between Dare County Schools and the County of Dare, or County of Dare / Parks and Rec.
To be clear, this is no cost.
No cost to
For
Dare
us,
County.
right?
No schools, no cost to Dare County
Right,
schools.
gotcha.
The county they're working with Dominion Power and another company out of Norfolk, is that right, Ian? They're the three that are working on the lighting process of it. They're actually, if you look at the baseball field, they're going to have to move in some of the lighting to help with the overview of the baseball field at night. So they're going to be adding to that. That's where they're going to get their source of power from, what's currently there for the baseball field. But it's going to be the first time that we have soccer lit up and softball.
So soccer can play at night if they want. That's amazing. Where does the baseball and softball teams, where have they been playing?
Diane, could you share that with us?
Okay,
But we're at what, just the one next door?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think this is a great proposal.
Will the Dare County maintain cutting the grass, and are there sprinkler systems?
They're going to be cutting the grass. They've already talked with Eden about upgrading the irrigation system for the facilities. You know, if you haven't been back there, there's a lot of holes back there. Moles are back there. It is a neat sand spurs. They're certainly needing some assistance. Now, they did not say they were going to come out and sod it. They said they will maintain it. So to bring it up. And I know the baseball coach, Trey, was very happy about not even putting sod on the infield of the baseball. He liked to have it all clay. Just makes it easier for them to maintain it. So, you know, the powers that are really involved with the school level has worked well with the county. So everybody's on the same page right now. So I just wanted to bring it to our board to make sure that you're informed what's looking ahead.
I have to say that I'm so glad that somebody's coming up with some solutions, because that's been a problem for years where the kids can't use the fields. And so, I mean, I welcome any solutions to get the kids back on the fields behind their own school. And if it's a partnership I hope the partnership works out and we can untangle any problems that are out there. But geez, I mean, I'm just happy because I've heard complaints for years about those fields and not being able to use them. And I just appreciate the fact that we got together with the Board of Commissioners and Parks and Rec to solve this problem. So, or at least working on the problem. So that's a good sign.
One other question. In this, is there any issues with restroom facilities?
Currently, right now, there's restrooms there, and they're going to maintain them as well.
Good.
You know, now when we use it for soccer or baseball and softball, our custodian staff will go out and clean for what we use, but for the overall use, the county will be taking care of that.
And I think it's going to have to be clearly put out in terms of like a legal document in terms of who's responsible for what and when and where.
And also, you'll also see in the upcoming year with Diane's budget for some things that we're going to need to look at for the baseball team and softball field. That what we're going to be possibly a storage facility for their equipment, some things that we're going to use for ourselves, for our own teams, not the Parks and Rec. The county's willing to take care of their needs, but there are also going to be some needs that's going to come back to us through Diane's budget for the upcoming year for what the baseball and softball and the soccer team needs. Okay?
I think it's about time.
Yeah.
It's about time.
And now, once this goes through, we're looking probably a year before the lights even get installed.
Well, as an example, Parks and Rec and the county have run the Babe Ruth baseball fields up at Kitty Hawk for over 20 years, and if you go by those, they're excellent. I mean, I've been there when my kids would finish. They'd come at 9 o'clock and start mowing the grass and doing everything, so they're very good at their participation.
Oh, yeah, all the Dare County Parks and Recs facilities
Yeah.
look good. I mean, they do a well job.
So we're basically making a motion to give Rachel permission to begin negotiations with the county on liability, responsibilities, financial, and
Just negotiating an agreement with them about who's going to do what, making sure that the obligations are clear on both parts.
and including facility use agreements and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And any agreement, obviously, I wouldn't It's just negotiating on your behalf.
Right,
If we get
so-
to the point where there's an agreement that we're okay with on your behalf and the county's okay with,
Then we'll
then
go
we
with-
would present that to you.
So I'll make a motion to give Rachel, on behalf of the Board of Education, authority to negotiate agreements with the county on the softball field, soccer field at Manio Middle School,
First Light Middle.
First Light Middle School.
And I'll
Manio.
second that.
Motion on the floor,
First
Mary
Light.
Lyons, seconded by
Sorry.
Margaret.
Yeah, that soccer field needs a lot.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Next item is the discussion tonight about our current or our future board meetings. As we have come over COVID, during COVID, we approved a couple years ago, we started videoing and recording our board meetings, which I'm getting good reviews from the community, especially the recording portion of it, live stream, so that they can be at their house, have an opportunity to take care of their family and still review our board meetings, okay? With also saying that it has put a burden on our staff. Our staff that was originally involved in filming and recording, we're down to one. Started out with 4 or 5, and now we're down to 1, and he's got a helper tonight. But, you know, in looking at this, when we started this process, we're looking, according to what school you're going to, but Aaron currently operates this for us, and he's located here at First Light High School. At our board meetings, we've got to, our staff, Blackstock's team will have to contact the schools. The schools will then prep for us to come, and other than this meeting, we've been in the gym many times at First Light High School, and I forget the numbers of students that we're impacting on their day-to-day education in that gym, where Chuck and his team has to set them to another location for us to set up. So we're talking 2.5, 3 hours, Aaron, is that correct, for setup? So 2 periods, 120 kids per period, but I'm just talking about with you setting up, Aaron, it's just 2 hours setup? Anywhere from 2 to 3 hour meeting possibly, and then another 2 hours take down. It's a long day. Aaron's here at 7 o'clock probably, just like most of our staff are. They're here ready to roll.
Some of our meetings like 9, 10.
Yeah, so,
I'm probably getting him before you.
and there again, it's even longer when we had to travel to Hatters, but we only go to Hatters twice. I did talk with Bobby Alton in the last few months about us utilizing the county commissioner's facility on our meetings, which is the second Tuesday of each month. They are open to that concept. They have meetings behind the conference room that we can go into closed session meetings, just like as we go here. I talked with the sheriff's office, Doug Dowdy. Doug was he liked the idea, so he could have his law enforcement there, and if he needed more enforcement, it's just across the street, you know, in the same parking lot as the facility. So it's up for discussion. I want to hear back from you as the board members of where we would like to do, because the second part of this is our recognition and highlights. We're still going to do those, but we need to do those while we're at their facility. While we go to a board tour, let the schools share with us what we want to see. Now, we got 3 new board members coming on board in December. They're going to be encouraged to want to go see the facilities, which is rightfully so. But we've been here on the board, we've seen those facilities, and they show us the same room day in and day out, year after year. And I feel they prefer to share their highlights of their students and staff, and let them do it at their school. And we've always had, during the month of May, a staff appreciation, whether it's a cake or ice cream, things like that. We could do that at the same time when they do their presentation and highlights. We could have it at 3:30 or 2:30, whatever time the dismissal of the school is. The teachers then and staff can come down and fellowship, talk with the board, meet with the board, let them know what great job they're doing, and recognize each school then. Instead of us doing just 1 week out of a month, out of a year, we'll do it as we go throughout the school year and let the staff realize how much we do appreciate them, because we do. And just waiting for 1 month to tell them that, they need to hear it more. They need to hear it as many times as you have an opportunity to go to that school, check in with the school administrators and walk around. I was able to do that today at Manual Middle School, and just like Joe said, they're just so happy to be back. I was at First Light Middle School last week in one of the classrooms, and just didn't even think on it, is that the teacher said, share with Mr. Twitty what you liked the best in your first 4 days of school. They said, being in the cafeteria. These are 8th graders that never sat in a cafeteria until this year. So, that's things that we go, and when we go to the school, we can see and communicate with them. So I'm open the floor to discussion on the board meeting locations. Yes, please.
Just in discussing this with the principals about the possibility that we might do something like this, to a person, there was just sort of, it would be so helpful to us if we didn't have this thing to deal with, And I remember being as a principal, it was 48 hours of planning. I mentioned to somebody earlier, it was like having a wedding at your school. You had to deal with all the different things you had to do. And we want to see the board, to do board tours. We want to see the board in our buildings. We want to see them at our football games and band concerts and those kinds of things. The board meeting itself was such a logistical load for each school. It'd be nice, in sort of keeping with what I mentioned before, to be able to take something off the plate of our principals if we could see a way to do that.
So,
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, my question to you would be, what sort of setup do you envision for having these events at the schools, non-meeting type, in other words, non-video type meetings, business meetings of the board?
So like highlight tours, basically,
Yeah,
tour the
correct.
buildings. I think that's something that we can continue to look at and how to do that. And my sort of, what I've been thinking is that the tours would be more informal, so you can get in the classroom, see people. Our principals also, in that discussion, indicated that they're going to be more vigilant or mindful of inviting board members to events that happen, because there are highlights that happen in our classrooms every single day in every single building, and they would really prefer for you to see those in sort of their organic mode, when they happen. So have the tours, and then follow those tours maybe with a faculty meeting at the end of the day with a reception, and maybe do some recognitions there. That's a possibility, but we can work that out with the schools as we go, how they want to highlight what they're doing.
I think, I'm going to speak for myself, but I think the board has always been wanting to get into the schools and wanting to see, what happens during the day, and be able to, as I used to call it, a dog and pony show. We'd like to see what actually happens in the school and to interact with the teachers.
I'm not familiar with that term, dog and pony show.
Well, that's what I called it. So I think we wanted to go into the classrooms and see what the students were doing without putting the pressure on the teachers or anybody else to perform. We just wanted to see the daily life of what a kid does in a classroom and ask the teachers questions in terms of things and how the board can help serve, the teachers in terms of providing the needs.
But I think they're still going to do that.
Oh, I know that.
The tours, but then have the recognition after that.
Right. It's all going to be in one event at the school. At school, I understand that concept. What I'm trying to do is distinguish between what we've done in the past and what's being asked for us to do now with the two different presentations, one at a Board of Commissioners venue and one at the school system venue itself, right?
You're, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what's being discussed is we separate the business of the board and doing the business of the board.
The business
And
of the
then
board to be at the
separating-
Board of Commissioners.
Yes, and then separating that with teacher and staff recognitions at the school. Because, I mean, in the past, when they've done the food trucks, well, we're all scrambling trying to get to as many as we can because we want to be able to see there, but it was all done on one day, and we can't, there's no way to be in Hatteras and Manio and First Flight all at the same time. So I see going to the schools and doing that recognition that day, and then and let's be honest. As soon as the recognitions are over, half the place clears out, and we're doing the business of the board. There's things I like about the idea, and there's things that I have concerns about with the idea. I like the idea of separating business as business, and I would rather network and talk with the teachers on a more personal level at the schools. And I don't want to put any more burden on anybody for us. It's just like when we used to do those things and the dinners, and they always let the board go through the buffet line first. No, this isn't about us. It's about them. No. I like the idea of separating the two, but I do see, and if we are to separate that and do the board of the business of the board at the commissioner's office, that's the only way I would want to separate that. It is a lot to cart around all this equipment, and then you take the chance on something breaking or something not going right. And we have set a precedent of being, and I think we set that precedent of being audible because of COVID. Because remember, we were meeting here, and we were doing them over audio. They were audio streamed, and people could listen, but it was so hard for people to hear. So we improved that, and I don't know. I don't know that it's not worth it to try it for this year and see.
That's what I think.
That's
Give it a try.
that's where I was gonna say.
And then if it doesn't work,
Marilyn,
we
that's
can
what
go
I was
back.
saying, is let's try it. The word is try it. If it seems that we're not fulfilling that duty, we can always revisit this process.
I'm going to speak up for the North Beach parents. If we have 8 meetings down in Manio, I don't find that a very centrally located spot for a lot of the parents, especially if they're getting off work at 5 and we're just going to restrict our meetings to just business. If you try to get there to do public speaking, you might not be able to get out early. I would like for us to maybe leave this a little bit open so that we will try in some way to have a few more meetings on the beach and not everyone in Manio. And I've talked to some parents, and they do not like the idea that every meeting would be down in Manio. It's 45 minutes if you're in Duck to get to Manio. So that would mean leaving work. Exactly, but we go there twice a year. So I'm just saying you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools that,
And also with that, we would have one meeting in Hatters
right.
at the Pheasant Center.
I would just like us to not lock this in as forever, just keep some ideas open to maybe find other ways to have more meetings here on the beach. Not every week, not every month, but maybe every 3rd month or something like that. Because you have Kill Devil Hills and Nags Head, their commissioners meeting, their meetings. So that's something to be looked into.
Well, I will comment too, and it goes along with Margaret, but I'm going to go into another direction as well, where, I just have these reservations about having something at the Board of Commissioners. We're the school board, and I don't want there to be, not that there'll be any confusion, but we are the school board. And our job, I think, is to be in the schools when we have our business meetings. And that's all I'll say about that.
I got the same feedback. It kind of blurs the lines that we're in a county building and not a school building. And I completely understand that the principals are thrilled that we're not going to be coming in and the difficulty that presents. I would just like us to keep thinking and finding other ways that we can.
And the other thing is the issue in some capacity economics. I mean, I see where the three options here, and the lesser option is having it at the Board of Commissioners, understanding that they already have in place that equipment. But that in and of itself doesn't change my viewpoint of how I feel about it. I don't want to tax our individuals that we utilize, you know, our staff either. I mean, I understand that. But I just think the community is entitled to have the meetings throughout the Dare County schools.
Frank, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, it's a fine line with the balance. Because the other side of the coin that I see is what happens behind the scene with people like Georgia and the IT people and the custodial people. They're waiting for us to leave so they can finish up their stuff. So I think that anything and everything that we can do to try to strike a happy medium, because we've just spent a bunch of time talking about how we want to lessen the burden on the staff type deal. And I think the other thing that is kind of gone without being said is that, if I heard you correctly, we really don't have the staff to support this the way that we're doing it now. So if nothing else, this would allow you some time to try this out and then figure out another way to bring some more attention back to the schools when it's more accommodating.
Yep, I agree.
I just think we should give it a try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Okay, so let's, I don't know that we're all going to come to a consensus. What if we go ahead with our regularly scheduled meeting for next month, and during the next before the next meeting, have an actual plan of what it looks like if we do that? Like, what?
Since we've had this discussion today, is maybe the community members can kind of tell us.
Oh, I'm pretty sure we're going to get a lot of emails starting probably right now.
So that would probably be something that
I'm
might
thinking we
come into
probably
play.
could check them, and they're coming in right now.
Yeah, more than likely. But I think I agree with you. You know, maybe that 30-day window that we're talking about.
Well,
now.
and then we have a little bit better picture of what it looks like what it looks like as far as, let's go ahead and plan, like with the principals. I was going to put you guys on the spot, make you come up and talk, but I'll spare you that. But maybe, I mean, and we can maybe just take a month and just make it clarify a little bit more what it looks like if we change it to the commissioners' meeting room, and couple that with what does it look like if we do the recognitions at the school level and the receptions for the teacher receptions. And maybe, Steve, if you got maybe a couple of the principals may be willing to sit down with maybe one or two of us, and we can come up with some sort of plan. So we can see what it looks like before we say, yes, we're going to do this, or no, we're not going to do this.
Well, aren't we looking at hiring a PR person?
Yes.
And maybe that person could have the capability of helping the schools. If we go in just to a couple of schools and still go to Manio, that might make things easier if we had somebody in-house.
And I'm also seeing that somebody has taken it upon themselves, and you have three options here. And I'm not sure, the first option is one with at Manio, which is, I guess, they're already set up. And then are these 2 and 3 outside companies that we're looking at? Okay, so there are two options available that exclude necessarily taxing our employees to put on this. We just have to pay money.
Yeah.
Or more money. I don't know.
More money.
Yeah.
But that's for the production. It's not the other parts that would have affected the principals as much. But
Understood.
Right.
Understood.
So that would be my recommendation, is that we look at this a little more detailed, get a little more firm on what it looks like or what it could or would look like, so that we're not guessing and, well, what about this, what about that, what about this? We have okay, if we decide to do this, then the November meeting, which is going to have to be changed, by the way, in case y'all haven't figured out that date yet. Yeah. Then in the November meeting, so in the October meeting, we could make a decision on whether we're, like, let's get a plan to present at the October meeting. And then if we decide that we want to do it, we'll start in November. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we got it right.
I can't get you.
So any other comments?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the principals.
The fact that they were so receptive to us doing this, and I'm just trying to find, is there another neutral place that would take it out of the schools where we could do the beach part and Manio?
Okay. So we'll start working on that.
Yeah,
So my recommendation would be that you set up an ad hoc committee, and I would suggest having maybe a couple teachers and a couple principals that would be involved in that and seeing how that looks. I don't know.
Well, I don't know about the
I'm
teachers.
just saying.
Now, they're in the classroom now. The last thing they need on their plate is an ad hoc committee. They've got to be in their classroom with their students.
Yeah.
We can make this decision with ad hoc committee if we need to choose so with us.
yeah.
And Blackstock can communicate with the school administrators. So he would be involved with us. He's going to be our liaison to the schools. So,
And one other thing is that, if we do use the commissioner's building, Hatteras has a bigger voice because we can live stream and pull from the President's Center, which is the remote center down there. So that gives more of a voice for Hatteras. Now, it doesn't help up here on the beach, but it does help Hatteras.
Well, and let's be clear, a lot of people say, I want public comment, I want public comment. I mean, we all have email. You can make public comment anytime you want because anything you send to a board member is public. Am I wrong, Rachel? Am I right?
No, if you send it to a board member, it's public.
Yep. If you send it to a board member, it is public comment. So, I mean,
With the exception of things that are confidential,
Of personnel, right.
or
so I think we just need to see what it actually would look like. The idea is worth entertaining.
that's why
and
we call it a board discussion.
I'm not sure what you're looking for.
What I'm looking for.
When you say you want to have an idea of what it's going to look like, what, I don't
Okay,
know. I
well,
don't know
because
what you mean.
we say that we're going to have, we're going to do the recognitions and things, and we're going to go to the schools just like before, and we're going to do the staff recognitions and staff receptions. Okay, what does that time frame look like? I know when we had, had some brief discussion, that we would do it on a day that I was already up here for another meeting because that would require, so what does that look like? When do we do a meal? What kind of meal are we going to do? Cake and ice cream? Are we going to have the students come in? If Diane wants to recognize students that have made the honor roll or whatever, are we going to have, what does that actually look like? Are we going to do instructional highlights when we go into the school? So just what that day looks like on a month to month, and then what that business meeting looks like on a month to month. Does that make sense?
But
Help me out, Frank.
wouldn't
it's
that be
easy to
done
look-
during
it's
the
easy to
board
see what-
tours?
Huh?
Wouldn't the recognition be done during the board tours?
Yes.
So it wouldn't be
Right.
during every month. We wouldn't be going to a school every month. It'd just be during whatever days set aside for the board tours. Then we'd hit the 3 schools and whatever, and they would do their dog and pony show.
Well, it's pretty much, the business meetings is what's taking place tonight. This is what the business meetings are going to be like.
Like, we didn't do any, yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to come up with a better plan that we're looking at, so we have a little bit.
Okay, we'll have something back to the board next month. So as of right now, we'll be going to Cape Hatteras Elementary School for our board meeting next month. Not tonight, nope. It's been requested for us to look at it, so there's no need to bring it to a vote because there's some more time to look into it. So we're not going to bring it to a vote tonight. We're just going to, it seems that the
You're saying as far as the change in location?
Yep.
Yep. So if, without any motion, then it will just stay as it is?
Yeah, and we'll have, I guess Mary Lynn's better plan. So we'll have something a little more, and we'll have something else with you other than what we have. All right. Item F, what did Mary Lynn?
So, Yeah.
Mary Lynn added, the agenda was amended to add an item F, which was a discussion about the involvement of homeschool
homeschooled students participating in
school activities.
athletics.
So I'm assuming you've gotten a lot of emails?
I've had somebody reach out to me, and then the board received an email a couple, was it about 4 or 5 days ago, or was it yesterday?
I didn't get it.
It's a homeschooled, I got it.
That's all right, go
Anyway,
ahead. Keep
it
on.
doesn't, it is what it is.
Well, let's just say we have special board members and non-special board members.
Right.
Okay, emails like that. How's that?
Nah,
No.
go ahead.
So I have personally received 2 emails about homeschooled students being allowed to play sports on our athletic teams. And this is something that has come up in the past. And in the past, pre-COVID, it was the North Carolina High School Athletic Association who made that determination, and then it was fuzzy, and I remember, we've had these discussions before about it in the past, and it's been their position you couldn't because of eligibility and keeping track of their grades and things like that. They had, if you remember, post-COVID, they decided to throw it on us. So now it's up to, because I did do a little research, and North Carolina High School Athletic Association's stand on homeschool students playing ball at a public high school is our decision, and there is some eligibility requirements. There's a form they have to fill out. But this is not going to go away. We need to make a decision, and we don't, as far as I know, and Oliver, we do not currently have a policy regarding homeschooled. No. So I think we do have a policy on homeschooled. Come on up to the mic. You did it. I couldn't find anything that we had that.
This is the forced volunteer section of the evening.
You've been voluntold?
So I believe it's 4400R, and
But that's a regulation.
board policy 4400R.
If it's
In 4400.
Okay.
And it references. It doesn't explicitly say that homeschool students cannot participate. Then it says students must be enrolled in school. So like it's worded somewhat ambiguously,
Okay.
but it lends itself to read
Did you see it?
that the students are enrolled because they also have to meet other
Other
criteria.
requirements. And I know that has always been the concern, and I know that disciplinary the concern, who's going to track it. I know there's a lot of concerns with it, but I feel like this is going to be something that, especially post-COVID, where people have just, a lot of people have decided to keep their children out. So I guess we need to, I think we just need to make a clarification on it, and
Are we
what
stuck
is
with
that?
We
are
need
we
to
stuck
do
with defining
44R.
enrollment? Are we stuck with defining enrollment?
Well-
Well, I'm looking at policy 4400, at what he's talking about right now, and it talks about school-related activities, but that's more of an attendance kind of policy. I don't see anything in here about enrollment specifically. But what I think, if you want to raise the discussion, what you could do is ask me to take a look at your policy and the North Carolina High School Athletic Association and report to the board on your options.
That would be great. And I understand too, I know this is something that when it has come up in the past, there's been concern, and I'm sure you can, like, that from the principals on how this is going to be, if we were to allow it, who's gonna keep track of their stuff? Who's gonna, like, there's just a lot of stuff that goes along with it.
Whole lot.
Whole lot.
So how about if that's the consensus of the board, I can bring that information to you at the October meeting. Just here's the parameters in which you can operate, and here's sort of pros and cons or concerns that you need to be worried about as you.
Including liability and
Sure, we can work through all that.
disciplinary and all that.
Woody, you okay with that? Margaret, you okay with that? Joe? Frank?
So we're gonna make a motion to have Rachel look into.
I don't think you're
You don't
taking.
need to
Oh,
do
you're
a
not taking much?
I don't think
That's
you're
where
taking.
that's where I'm going around and asking everyone. Marilyn, you
Yep.
feel? Susan? Okay, yep, so. So next on the item is board member comments. Susan, you have any comments for us tonight?
I forgot we were going to do that. It was a great meeting. I appreciate all the positive feedback. I love how this year seems to already be going. I have really, really good vibes that this is going to be a great year.
Would you believe me if I told you I was speechless?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't believe it.
I just want to say, I just wanted to say, you know, as you guys all know, we're in the process of the superintendent search, and we've had some really great collaborative meetings. I have very optimistic about how we're doing moving forward, and just want to thank the staff that has been involved in helping us through that process. And they have done an amazing job. And I'm looking forward to a quiet year.
Frank?
I don't know what Kool-Aid she's drinking about a quiet year, but we'll see about that. But I have witnessed the different kids kind of coming and going to school, and it's really lightens the heart to see the excitement in the kids' face and actually see their face. And the one thing that I saw again this afternoon is the presence of the resource officers. We're so blessed to have that, and thank Sheriff Dowdy for helping in that. But you definitely see where there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, and the end results is better schools, better grades, and the future, because we need those kids, because they are the future. And anything we can do to help get them further ahead, it benefits them and it also benefits us. So thanks to all that are, putting their hand to the plow.
Joe?
What I've noticed about observing the children is how resilient they are. It's just incredible what they've been through, and yet they're not looking backwards or looking forwards. And so what I want to make sure we do as a school system is we nurture that and we give them those opportunities to thrive and be successful. And I know the staff that we have is committed to that, and I greatly appreciate that. They work their rear ends off, and it's all for the benefit of the children. So I think, the parents should be very happy about, giving us their children to educate in this county.
Margaret?
Well, it's kind of hard to add to all that's been said, but I want to thank every teacher that comes into our buildings every day, the custodians, and I know that they're very shorthanded in nutrition, and the bus drivers, especially the teachers. I know you've had a rough few years, and we're behind you, and let us know anything we can do. And I also want to make a comment about public comments, how refreshing they were. So thank you, those of you who spoke with us. Thank you.
Woody?
Yeah, I don't have much, but I agree everything that everybody said. It's been such a positive year so far. I've had parents come to me with excitement from their children being back in school, socializing with their friends and having fun. So, I mean, it's been exciting to see and hear from parents about that.
I'm just going to, just say thank you to the staff. 11th day of school, everybody's glad to be in the building. Students are happy, but all the hard work prior to the first day of school opening was unbelievable, and that didn't happen overnight. So these open houses that these staff went through, the administrators set up, things like that there was all what we didn't see, but it took place. So that start with what they did behind the scenes and all that lead work made it a positive open of our school system, our school day. So really, it's the staff that we've got to applaud and thank them for all the dedication and hard work.
Steve.
That's staff. He's staff.
I know.
Thank you, Steve.
And Anna.
So that's staff. So with that, because I don't want to get there and start picking one name and I'm going to forget somebody. So that's why I'm going to say staff,
There you go.
So with that said, do I have a motion on the floor to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Good girl, both.
Can I pause you for just a second?
Sure.
I know it's probably I'm probably breaking rules, but I'll be out of here soon enough. I did want to put a plug out. We had an incident happen at First Light Elementary School with a power situation this week. Maintenance folks stepped up, problem solving. Were able to turn that around, and just wanted to give a shout out to our maintenance folks for addressing that so quickly and getting it corrected so we can get back in school. I apologize
That's fine.
for disrupting the flow here.
That's fine. So I have a motion by Margaret. I'm going to let the second go from Joe. You can have the second. How's that? Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.